closing deals to opening minds. This is the Mr. D podcast. I'm Omar Andreasen, and we're about to get real about real estate, success, and the grit that it takes to build your best life. Let's dive on in. Hey everyone, how you doing? And welcome to another episode of the Mr. D podcast. My name is Omar Andreasen, also known as Mr. D. Today on the podcast, I'm excited to have Paul Compeau. So Paul is actually Paul, and this is cool because I've never spoke to anybody that just focuses on college financial planning. And you've been doing this since 2008, and it says you helped over 500 families. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. I probably helped tens of thousands from all the people that hear me speak and do that. But I have personally designed financial plans for over 500 families to figure out how they're going to pay for college in the most efficient way without sacrificing the retirement and going bankrupt and just digging into mounds of debt. So, yeah, when I come onto a show like yours, I thank you for having me. I love to be able to bring that experience, all the great things that those families were able to do that I can share with your audience, and maybe some pitfalls some families fall into that usually just before they met us that we can help the people listening avoid.
That's awesome, man. Because I'm sure I don't need to tell you this, but I'm sure a lot of families, even I guess when they have that either the oops baby or if they plan to have a family, then it's okay. As parents, we're always trying to give our kids more than what we had, right? So it's then, okay, now we need to start planning for the future. So I guess when is it that you see when people usually come talking to you on average? You see it more as like, you know what, usually their kids 4 or 5 and then they talk to me, or no, more I actually get the people that are planning ahead before they have a family and then they have that conversation with me.
Yeah, so the correct answer of when they should come and talk to somebody is before they get pregnant or when they first found out they're pregnant. That's the time to come and figure out the financial side of things, right? But we also recognize that most people don't have what's the best way to say it? There's a law of human nature called Parkinson's law where a task will expand to the time allowed for it. So what happens is most people don't approach somebody like me or don't actually take advantage of the services we have until they have a high school student. And even with a high school student, even on the counseling side, where there's things that they miss out on because they come to us in the sophomore year of high school, we can't do certain things, right? There's certain strategies we can't use. And on the financial side, we have to figure out that problem within 3 or 4 years instead of 12 years or 15 years, right? Mm-hmm. If they had come to us when they're younger. So it's normal. And that's where a lot of people, when they have younger kids, they've done some amazing things with those kids, right? They had more urgent problems, they had more urgent things they're looking to solve that they use those financial resources for. So while a lot of people might save a couple $100 a month for college or something like that when the kid's young, they should be saving probably 800 or 1,000 a month to make sure we can cover the entire college bill when it comes. And they just don't have that money to save because they're in their 20s or 30s. They just had a kid. Stuff's expensive, right? So they don't have that kind of money that they can save towards that. And they're trying to get out of their own student debt in a lot of cases. They're trying to pay off their own credit cards and their own mortgage and everything else they're trying to do. And they want to take some vacations with the kids, right? They want to enjoy life together. They don't want to have to drive an old beater of a car anymore. So they have those things, and then they have a second kid, and they have a third kid, and all of a sudden we need a bigger vehicle and we need a bigger house and all of these other good things that they're doing to provide for their children and provide for their family are much more urgent than saving for college 20 years from now or saving for college 15 years from now. So yeah, most people approach us when they have a high school student. So I do more triage college planning than long-term college planning.
Okay, that's a good thing. So I want to talk about the hidden truth about college cost. All right. Do you think that, how do I ask this question? Why do you think college is broken for so many families? Maybe, you know what, or maybe that mindset that family might have that there's no way I'm ever going to be able to put my kid through college. What do you say to somebody that's listening that has that mentality right now or telling themselves that?
Yeah, so we understand why you have that mentality. Even out of state public universities are between $50,000 and $85,000 a year, right? So We're not even talking the private universities that are 90 or $100,000 a year right now. And then inflation keeps pushing those prices higher every single year. So it's absolutely crazy what's going on with those universities and the costs out there. So I understand people think they're up against it. They think they can't handle it. But that's where most people don't realize how the financial aid system works and how to select the right college for their family to get the maximum financial aid. And that's really the secret sauce. The number one thing you can do to increase your financial aid is pick the right college to apply at. The ones that you have the confidence, because you know how the system works, that they're going to give your family maximum financial aid. So what we found, National Association of College and University Business Offices put out a statistic last year that 56% is the average tuition discount at private universities.
All right. So what I want to get in asked now is about the hidden truth about college costs, and especially about how about when you have some of those families that think either college is broken, college is too much, or just there's no way in hell I can ever think about affording anything for my kid. What do you say to somebody like that's listening right now?
Yeah, that's normal. I understand exactly how you feel because are ridiculous. They have gotten out of hand, even $5,000 per year. So we don't even have to go to the private universities to have it break the bank. So when we're talking costs, most families load of money. That's most families are going to spend more on college than they do on their first house.
It's crazy.
If they have 2 or 3 kids, college is usually going to cost more than your first house. So when we look at that cost and we look at that, people get scared, they get frustrated, and they don't even bother applying that. They're looking for, okay, what is the lesser expensive option? What they don't know, though, is selecting the right college is the number one way to get financial aid. It's the most important thing to become the expert in is what college has the most generous financial aid available for a student like ours and a family in our financial situation. And that's what we want to look for because it was the National Association of College and University Business Offices in 2023 just put out a survey. The average discount rate at private universities is over 56%. So most people aren't paying anywhere close to full price. And we want the families that have the ability to pay as little as possible. So even middle class families, we're getting significant amount of financial aid because we know how that system works.
I mean that's great to hear, especially if someone thinks that there's just no way 50 56% discount. That's pretty huge. That's
Yeah,
massive.
that's
That's huge.
average too.
Yeah, I did not even know that. That's interesting. So let me ask you this. Are there any common financial mistakes that parents make that you've run into? And then you and your team, okay, this is what we need to break, or this is what we need to do to make sure that you guys don't have this mistake again.
Yeah, I could fill probably 10 podcasts on all the mistakes people have made. Some of the big ones come from myths that they hear from people who are well intentioned but don't know how the system works, right?
Mm.
So they'll hear from somebody who lives in their neighborhood or a friend of theirs that maybe has similar income. They say, you know what? I filled in the FAFSA form. I went through the whole process. It's a pain in the butt, and we didn't get anything. So you shouldn't even bother looking for yourself. And it may be true that they didn't get anything, but what you don't know is if that friend who told you that, did they pick the right college for their family to get financial aid? And did they know how the financial aid system works and what levers to pull ahead of time so that they can get maximum financial aid? And that's where a lot of those myths come from is most families can get financial aid. And there are some families that won't get need-based financial aid, but we need to position the student for merit-based scholarship. And you still have to go through the same process to get merit-based scholarship at most schools. So that's one of the big myths that a lot of people make the mistake on. But then just filling in the forms and filling them in correctly. So what's a good example? One of the questions on the FAFSA form, they ask, what is the total net worth of your investments? And Omar, I won't ask you to list that right now. But if you think of the total net worth or your listener,
$1.
if your listener thinks of the total net worth of their investments, that's the question on the FAFSA. Imagine that number in your mind. In the fine print, it says do not include your retirement accounts. So if you just filled in the answer, what is the net worth of your investments? You overreported your assets, but most people significantly. So those are the kind of things that we see very consistently that are just major errors on the financial aid. And that's where there's billions of dollars that are missed out on just because of errors on the financial aid paperwork, knowing that system. Now, the second step of that, though, is what things can we adjust as far as assets and income before they get to the college process that allows them to succeed. I'll tell you a story. We have a family who was a single mother. Her husband had died a number of years before. She had some money in the bank because of a death benefit that he left for her. Little more than six figures, not over, not crazy big to live off of the rest of her life. She worked at the school part time, made about $20,000 a year, but those assets are going to count against you in the financial aid formula. So she had other assets that didn't count in the financial aid formulas. And because of what we're able to do, her daughter's going to Boston University right now. That's an $85,000, $95,000 a year university. And she's only paying less than $2,000 per year. So that's going to make that six-figure fund that she has, it's going to preserve it through her daughter. We're going to do the same thing for her son and try to maximize his financial aid. And all of a sudden, she can make that last the rest of her life instead of spending it all on a year and a half of college.
So wait, you're telling me she's going to a $90,000 school a year, only paying $2,000 a year?
Yeah. And that's
Can
where
you do
most
this with houses?
if you can find a deal, that's not my expertise. You'll have to talk to your real estate friends. But it's a crazy world that it is that if you know the system and you know how to position and change things, there's certain assets that count, certain assets that don't count. If we know that ahead of time, we can set families up to save on financial aid. The problem is most people do it the wrong way. They do it in a way that it sabotages their financial future. And that's where good financial planning comes in. So I am a certified financial planner and all of the designations and everything like that. I love planning ahead with our clients. And I'm not just sacrificing everything to pay for college. It's how do we preserve the maximum money for after college, for all the vacations and the fun stuff you want to do with your grandkids and all the other stuff that's coming after that. Usually a retirement soon after the kids are out of college. We want to make sure we're maximizing their money for after that.
I'm just still trying to fathom how you just said $90,000 school only paying 2 grand. I was like, what? I mean that
It's
to
cheaper than going
me.
to the community college down the
Oh,
street.
100% it is. That's just now, mind you, does that also include like room and board, or is
Mm-hmm.
that just that includes room and
Yeah, that's tuition, room and
everything?
board, books, travel expenses, everything that she needs to go to school at Boston University. It's absolutely amazing. And what tugs at my heart and what I care about is these kids succeeding, right?
Mm.
And the problem is they know, Omar, you have some kids, and I don't want to get too deep if you don't want to in your personal life, but you've told your kids you can't afford stuff before, right?
All the time. God damn
All
it.
the time, right?
McDonald's breaks my wallet. Every McDonald's Happy Meals.
Yeah, and if you're telling them that over a $30 or $50 meal, I promise they'll keep asking for stuff,
Mm.
but they're listening. And then when they start looking at the cost of colleges and they see one of them is 30,000 and another one's 90,000, the kids will absolutely not apply at the 90,000 one because they think that mom and dad don't have enough money to buy McDonald's again. They or the new pair of shoes or whatever else you told them you they couldn't afford right then. They're listening and they're going to sabotage their own future and not apply at the schools that it might be the best for them because they don't want mom and dad to grow broke. That's the number one thing I hear from kids is that in the high school years when they're looking at the college process, that's the biggest thing they're worried about. The second thing, you want to hear what it is, Omar?
I would love to hear this.
We don't want we want to make sure that mom and dad have enough money left for my little siblings' college.
Hmm.
They don't want mom and dad to blow all the money on their college and not have enough left for their younger siblings. And those are the kind of things they're almost never going to say to their parents because that's disrespectful and talking about their money and everything like that. But that's what a lot of kids are concerned about, right? And they have other concerns about picking the right major and things like that, picking the right path in life. But those are the two biggest ones we hear. They're worried about mom and dad's money because mom and dad have been providing them for a really long time, and now they're not there yet, but they're starting to think like an adult, and they know adults have to be worried about the budget and the money and things like that. And they think they're making a good decision on behalf of their parents by just looking at the less expensive universities, but they don't know how financial aid works because nobody's ever taught them, nobody's ever empowered them and put together their college list with what's a good financial fit for the family as well. And that's where we are the experts on finding the right, not just the right cost, but we want to find the right campus, the right culture on the campus, right? Is it in the city? Is it rural? Is it a large campus? Is it a small campus? Is it liberal? Is it conservative? What kind of campus environment do you want to be involved in? Is it a big football school? Do they not really care about sports? Well, how are you going to fit in on that campus? So we need that to be a right campus fit. We need a right curriculum. We need it to have the right academics, the right majors. We want them to excel in those majors and a couple backup majors because we don't want them to transfer and have to take extra years. So we need to make sure that the academic level is going to fit. Now, the colleges do a little bit of the academic stuff naturally, because if you're a 3.2 student, you're not going to get into Harvard where the academics might be more challenging, right? You're going to get into a school that you can handle. And those are the kind of things that most counselors, that most teachers, that most people at the schools or the parents are talking about is, do you fit in on campus? Do they have what you want to study? They leave out the cost. And that's where we combine all of those together to make sure that we're helping those families. So one of the things you mentioned, you haven't heard of people like us that just specialize in college financial planning. We
No.
have those team of certified counselors on our team through the National Education Counselors Association that allows us to also work with the students to identify the right schools. And there's very few companies, Omar. There's probably about 10 or 15 of them across the entire country, and most of them are my friends who do that same business that actually help with the students and great counseling for the students and help the parents on the financial side and put all of that together to one cohesive college plan.
I'm just mind blown because I was like, I just never knew that was out there
Yeah.
at all. So I think that's awesome. And I'm glad that we definitely have you on the show. So then everyone listening here, especially if you have kids or even if you're planning to have kids, then you can pass this on, or even if you're not having kids, pass it on to a friend. But I think this is amazing. So let me ask you, okay, let's say that someone meets up with you and they're planning to have kids, or maybe they just had a kid, and hey, Paul, we need to sit down with you and we need to start putting money away for our child. And then all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden, the child for is a genius or whatever happens, they get a full ride scholarship.
Yeah.
So they don't have to touch that money. What happens with that money? What can you do with it? What can you not do with it?
Yeah, so it depends on where they saved for money, and that's one of the limitations of 529s is then you end up paying some taxes. For most people, if they have money left in a 529 after college, we actually end up using it for the next generation. We save it for their grandkids because that's the most tax efficient way to use it is to just keep going. Pretty rare that happens because most people don't have enough money saved for college, and it's pretty rare they get a full ride after they did save it all that money. But if it does happen, that is something we can absolutely plan out with the family at that point. That's best news. That's best case scenario, right?
Mm,
You're ready for it, and then you didn't need the money. If you have an emergency fund, best case scenario is you have the money and you didn't have an emergency, right?
correct.
So that is good news overall. But that's one of the reasons we advocate for considering other options outside of the 529, outside of college specific tax favored plans, because when we look at those types of plans, and this doesn't help the system be any better, when you hear the advertisements from your state government on the 529 plans or financial advisors promoting them and things like that, I'm going to go financial nerd for 10 seconds here, Omar. We look at the standard deviation, we look at the risk inside those funds, and for that risk, how much return could you get if you had a regular investment? And what we find is the mutual funds inside most 529 plans are very mediocre, sometimes very poor. They're not doing great investment work compared to other options that are out there. So for most people, they don't want mediocre investments. They don't want it locked up only for college. And then if you want to make it even worse, think of your college as a business and think of the financial aid office as the billing arm, the collections arm of that business. If they see that you have a 529 college savings account, do you think they could charge your family more than the family who has nothing saved?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. So I'm convinced that, and they're not bad people, it's just that's their job. They do a little happy dance and they're excited when they have somebody with a 529 because they know that they can charge you 5, 10, $15,000 more than a family who didn't. And that's where saving for college can be very dangerous for financial aid if you don't know how the system works. Just $10,000 of extra savings can increase, or I should say, decrease your financial aid numbers between $500 and $2,500 per year. So we don't even have to save a lot. I'll repeat that. 10,000 of extra savings could cost you between $500 and $2,500 of missed financial aid.
It's nuts.
And that's where you, if you know the system, once again, you can avoid that issue.
So I guess you would advise them then, okay, listen, maybe do you advise your clients not to use the 529 plan at all and maybe diversify in other things that can help towards college funds?
Yeah, there's all sorts of other places to save. So I tend to, in my process, I don't tend to make too many recommendations. I show families how different things work and give them the honest truth about the different options, and they pick what's best for them. I've never had somebody keep putting money into a 529 after they learned how it worked.
I said, and then the bill collector from the college can't look at the other, let's say they don't choose a 529 or there's another plan.
Mhm.
That bill collector for the college can't see that one. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah,
Or
so
how much
there's
money they have?
places you can store wealth that isn't even the college doesn't hear about unless you accidentally tell them, which our clients don't do that. So when we go through a college readiness breakthrough session for families, which anyone listening could take advantage of, when we do that, one of the things we do is we look through the different assets they have and we discuss with them, here's the ones that are counting against you, here's the ones that aren't counting against you, and here's maybe the opportunity to improve your financial aid, and here's how much we would improve it by. So there's many assets outside financial formulas off of the FAFSA form. There's the equity in your primary residence. If you have a fully paid off house, it doesn't go anywhere on the FAFSA form. It does go on the CSS profile that's only used by about 400 colleges out there. So some schools do count it against you. But there's other options where we can put money. Retirement accounts at work don't get reported. Your Roth IRA doesn't get reported. Your cash value life insurance doesn't get reported. Your annuities don't get reported. So there's any number of different places where we can stash money where they aren't reported on the FAFSA form to the schools, where you can have $20 million in those assets and you can still qualify for need-based financial aid.
Hmm. And of
So
course,
then
some
it's up to us working with, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead. No, I was
It,
gonna say it's better for someone to hire someone like you because I'm sure if a layman person like myself that doesn't know what the hell they're doing, all of a sudden I start putting, yeah, my house is worth this, is paid off, my IRA, I have this, and all of a sudden, like you said, let's say the kid wants to go to University of Miami, and they're like, yeah, yeah, you can come there, but the financial aid now has just been maybe they only get 20% discount instead of
yeah.
56 because it's a private school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's where a school like Miami has a good amount of money available, right? They're one of the better ones as far as financial aid, but they also have a crazy high cost, right? So
Yeah.
we need to balance that. So for the individual families, it's up to us to look through the different, does financial aid even matter? Because if the family's not going to qualify for any need-based financial aid, we still have to pay the bill. So there's still other planning to do. But adjusting assets doesn't make any bit of difference unless somebody loses their job. And that's one of the big things that we do talk about because, and I'm not a Debbie Downer overall, but I'll be there for a minute here. Between the ages of 50 and retirement, 66% of people get fired or laid off, and only 1 in 10 of them makes as much money afterwards. So when I'm sitting with a couple that's 48 or 50 or 52 years old, their first kid is in high school, I'm expecting that they're going to lose their job at some point over the next 10 or 15 years before they retire. And that when that happens, all of a sudden they do qualify for financial aid when before their income disqualified them because they made $400,000 a year. Just like that, all of a sudden they are a need-based financial aid family because they got laid off from their job. And eventually they'll get another job, but usually they don't make as much money. So we love to put that good planning in, that even if you do get fired, even if you aren't able to go to work, if you don't show any income, if we pick the right college, it's almost free. And that's what we want for the families, is that you losing your job doesn't mess up your kid's college career. Yeah, so looking with the family through those different types of assets, which one is best for them? Because we also have to consider liquidity. We also have to consider taxes. We also have to consider the timing of the money and being able to use the money and how much investment risk. All of those different things need to come into play when we're deciding where to place that money. So most people are looking for, where do we place the money? But we also need to use it to spend on our kids' college, right? Because when you're looking at University of Miami, more than likely most of the listeners have a job. They're not going to pay $0. But if they're going to still pay at University of Miami, for some families it might be 10,000, it might be 30,000, it might be 50,000. You get a nice financial aid package, you still have a bill. So we need to be able to use some of the money to pay that bill when it comes up as well. And that's what we specialize in, is helping clients navigate those different options, looking at all the different criteria, the characteristics they want, and then selecting the right one for them.
Interesting. Let me ask you now, let's say for whatever reason you got a student loan, okay, of X, and then all of a sudden you graduate or you don't graduate and you fall on hard times and you have to file bankruptcy. If you file bankruptcy, does that take away your student loans, or that student loan always there no matter what?
Yeah, that student loan is there no matter what. So I was just teaching a class last night at a local library here, and we were talking about that exactly. So most of those loans, a student, a kid, going to their undergraduate degree, mom and dad are probably, they're just moving out of mom and dad's house, things like that. They can only borrow five, six, $7,000 per year. So the maximum over a
Mm.
4-year bachelor's degree is 27,000 in loans from the kid, and it's a little bit each year. So most of those loans that you hear about, and we won't get too deep into the politics, Omar, but most of those loans you hear about, that everybody's complaining about the student loan crisis, and I'm right there with them because it's terrible. Most of those loans, think of the people in their 50s and even into their 70s that borrowed money for their kids' college. That's where most of that student loan growth is, in those older generations. It's not as much the 25-year-olds that are trying to pay down those loans. So when we look at those federal loans, those federal parent loans, they're called the parent loans for undergraduate students, the PLUS loans. Those have a 4% upfront fee. So for your real estate people, think if a mortgage had a 4% upfront load. That'd be criminal, and the government would prosecute them for being like a criminal enterprise. But that's what the federal government does to parents of college students. And then there's a 9% interest rate this year on top of that.
Oh my
And
God.
that's why those parents are ballooning that debt, is because they can't keep up with it. And then you squish it. It's not like a 30-year mortgage. You squish it into a 10-year repayment schedule. And that's the 10 years that they're supposed to be paying on it when they should be saving for their retirement. But your question then is, because I've seen student loans. We had a family come in that was paying $2,300 per month for their two kids' state school, in-state university college payments. Not to the college, to the loans they took, because they didn't have the money to pay for it. And then all of a sudden they didn't have the money to loan more money either, right?
Mm.
They didn't have the income. They were paying $2,300 a month. So a lot of people would say, yeah, file bankruptcy, get out of those loans. But they survive the bankruptcy. They continue accruing interest and penalties if you're not paying on them. And then you try to pay on them and you do your best, and they continue to accumulate and accumulate. Yeah, so it's really tough. Most middle class families can't get to 2,300 or $3,000 a month. They get to about 1,000 a month, but that only gets the student through the first 2 years usually. And that's how parents end up in trouble. And you brought up, maybe they didn't finish the degree, and that's a lot of times what happens. Is it's not that mom and dad can't afford the bill, because they never could afford the bill. They can't even afford to borrow more money to send their daughter back to college.
Man, I just can't believe they have a 4% fee up front, and then, like you said, 9%. That it's pretty much like a hard money loan or doing those payday loans. It
Yeah.
sounds
Yeah,
that
it's
that
absolutely crazy.
and it's funny how then the federal government is harder on usually the payday loan people, but then now, like I said, we won't get into that.
But Omar, the schools are in on it too,
Yeah.
because when you apply at the university, they're going to give the kid the little $6,000 or $7,000 loan, and they're going to say, "Mom and Dad, you could borrow the other 36,000, and your kid can go to college next month. You just have to click a couple buttons on the online signature, and then your kid's off to college. It's that easy." And that's where most families end up paying for college because they didn't create the blueprint, they didn't create the plan ahead of time. And that's where, if you have a student, and Omar, you mentioned you have kids, most
Yep.
people have never put together year by year, here's how much money we need in order to pay the college bill, let alone how we're going to come up with the money. And that's where the harder part is, how are we going to come up with the money? But the start is, how much do we actually need? How much do we need their freshman year, their sophomore year, and then add the second student and the third student and just map that out. Most people are looking at, I've run usually for a family, 2 or 3 kids, we're looking at it between a $500,000 and $750,000.
Here's another question for you. Okay, so let's say you have when you go in and you're like, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to plan for 4 years. And then all of a sudden, your kid decides he wants to be an attorney or
Mm-hmm.
maybe a doctor. Now you have another 3 to 4 years on top of
Yeah.
that. Then where do you scramble if you can? Then all of a sudden, okay, hey, Paul, guess what? My kid is now a senior and he decides he wants to be either if it's senior high school or maybe even a sophomore, freshman in college or anywhere in college. Can you still scramble?
Yeah, so you still have financial aid forms to file every single October that are for the next year's financial aid. So there's absolutely things you can do to try to get more financial aid. There's absolutely better financial decisions you might be able to make to do things better. Maybe you're doing everything right. And that's part of the reason we offer those free college readiness breakthrough sessions, is to see if you are doing everything right. We're going to let you know. We're very selective on who we allow to go into our program because we only want people we're going to have a major impact on. So we are a fee-based company. We charge between $3,000 and $8,000 per family to come through our program. And that includes counseling for the student. It includes the financial plan. It includes lots of different things. But only about 3 out of every 10 people who come in for one of those sessions actually get the opportunity to work with us, because we are very selective on who we sign on, because we want happy customers, right? So people can go on Google and they can search for BridgeWise College Planning. We don't want people for us to take a few $1,000s from them and then them be pissed off at us, right?
Yeah.
That's not the world I want to live in. So we are somewhat selective. That's why we have 4 5-star reviews. And I'll sound a little arrogant, Omar. We get 5-star reviews also, not just because we're selective, but because we're really good at what we do. We have the professional counselors. We have some of the best financial planners in the country who specialize in this area that are meeting with the families to develop those financial plans. So, yeah, we love to be able to do it. And that's where starting early and choosing a right fit school is so important in that process.
No, but you know what? I love what you said. I love you said that you're very selective when it comes down to it. And because number one, you want to make the most impact for the family. And I think that's very important. Even now on our real estate, we hired 2 people on the team. And then my wife's, okay, so what are you going to hire the next? I'm like, I'm not. Like right now, I'm taking a break. Let's cultivate these 2. They're great people. And then from there, unless somebody comes in and blows my mind, then we'll bring somebody else. Then we'll bring him in. But other than that, no, I want to be selective. I learned from my first time when I wasn't selective. It was horrible. And now, so I think listen, you hit the nail on the head because at the same time, you guys are great at what you do, and you want to make sure that you get that client that kind of meets with you because in a way, it's a long-term relationship. You're either getting them right when they're having kids, like you said, or either way. But I mean, you're gonna have a client anywhere between 12 to 16 years, right? So you're gonna have a long relationship with that client.
So many of them actually stay with us the rest of their life because we did
Oh,
such a
that's
good job
right. Yeah. And you
planning
do
for
the
their retirement
financials.
and all their other
That's right.
financial goals. We put it all together.
I forgot
Um,
about
I'm getting older every day, but I'm still under 40. So for most of the people planning for their kids, they have a high school student right now. I'm younger than them. My kids are still both in elementary school. So I tell them, hey, I plan to be here the rest of your life. So eventually I'll have clients that are younger than me. I'm watching that average, that date of birth of the clients coming in, and it's getting closer and closer to mine.
No, that's awesome. Man. I completely forgot that. Yeah, you guys have the financial side and you also have
Yeah.
where you help with the kids with the school too. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So yeah, you pretty much got them for a very long time for life, like you said that. And I think
But
that's amazing.
But the other part of that is then we get to work with the students too, as they're going through college, they're earning money, they're graduating, they're making their first big boy job, they're able to make some money. And now we're working with that next generation. So we have grandparents that are working with us, we have the parents that are working with us, and the students are now growing into adults and buying their first house and having the financial freedom of not having that big burden of school loans like some of their peers have. It's just amazing to see that long term, that just generational shift of getting things done. And Omar, I want to tell you, can I share one secret with you about why that generation shift happens?
I hope you do.
Is the thing I always think about, and I care so much about these kids, not as much as their parents, but I care about these kids so much. I want them, the national average right now is 5.8 years to graduate from a 4-year bachelor degree. That means half of the parents that are listening right now should be planning for 6 or more years, not just 4 years of an undergraduate education. So if you're thinking 50 grand a year, most people should be thinking 300,000, not 200,000. But when we look at that, one of the things that helps the students is if they graduate on time, and I think about how much this is generationally, because it's not just the extra 100,000 that mom and dad had to pay for the college bill, it's the extra 2 years that student should have been on the path that they were on, and they should have been working for those 2 years. And some of the kids out of college, they're making 60, 70, 80, maybe even 100 grand a year. That money can't be recouped either. So it's not just the loss of the money that you paid the college, it's the loss of 2 years of experience that kid could have had in their real field instead of 2 extra years in college, right? And that's what I'm really love is when we have the right counseling, we pick the right major, we pick the right career path, we pick the right school based on that career path. We're able to have kids graduate a little early, sometimes graduate on time very consistently. And that saves mom and dad a boatload of money. And that helps those kids be, in a lot of cases, 150 or $200,000 of income ahead of those in their peer group.
That's awesome. No, that makes sense. So let me ask you, do you work with families all across the nation?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, we have clients all over the country. We're based out of Troy, Michigan, beautiful suburb of Detroit. So we have a lot of clients here in Michigan. We have clients in Florida. We have clients in Connecticut. We have clients on the West Coast. I think we cover every time zone. I'm trying to think if we have anybody in Mountain Time Zone. I know we have at least one in Colorado. But yeah, we cover the country and we love to be able to do that. I've found it's cool to share a little bit of my life. I can take longer and longer trips with my family because all of our clients are willing to meet virtually with us, right?
yeah,
So last few years we've been taking 6 week trips. We went to Europe. We did up and down the East Coast one year, and then this last year we went to the American Southwest to Arizona and Colorado and visited Vegas and Texas and all over. If I can still work the 40 hours a week or whatever I put in, and meet virtually with the families, my kids can be at a pool or a lake and somewhere unique that they normally aren't at.
no, that's awesome, man. No, yeah. And I think I would say that's everybody's dream.
Yeah,
Especially if you have kids, you
part of
want to
it.
be able to where you're anywhere, everywhere, and you can still get your job done and still vacation and be with your family, right?
One part of that is like you were talking about, Omar. If you hire the right people on your team, and I have an amazing team here that's able to help the clients and to do a lot of different things, and then I have my role on the team, and I can fulfill that from just about anywhere. It's just an absolutely amazing relationship that we have with those clients, whether they're here in person or they're 1,000 miles away. We do amazing planning and make sure that it's in that client's best interest.
I love that, man. That's awesome. All right, I got one last question for you before we get off.
Yeah.
If you could just leave one deed behind, one action, mindset, or even a lesson for anyone listening, any real estate professional, any entrepreneur, parent, what would that be? The people who are listening today.
Mm. There's so many. Narrowing it down to one probably goes, if I had to narrow it down to one, it'd be listen to Teddy Roosevelt's The Man in the Arena speech. Actually, the whole speech is a citizen in the Republic. And there's a 2-minute clip you can find of it. It's called the Man in the Arena. And what he talks about is that the man in the arena is the one who should have all the credit. It's not the person who's scorning him from the sideline, telling him how he could have done it better, right? It's the person who's in the arena that gets the credit. But when you're in the arena, the expectation is you're going to get bloody, you're going to get sweaty, you're going to get dirty. Like it's going to be a mess. You're going to fail. And he says I'll paraphrase, to do is to err. If you're going to be somebody who's doing things, especially striving at great things, you are going to make mistakes, and that is the expectation. And if you're not making mistakes, you need to be doing more things, right? You need to do more harder things. And that's how we grow in life. That's how we strive. So we look at the kids picking a path in life, right? We can't just stand there for 6 years and try to figure out what path we want to go on in life, right? We need to go down a path. And if you have that visual, you have 2 paths you can choose from, right? Or the 100 paths you can choose from. You need to start walking down one of them and figure out if it's the right path, because until you walk down one of the paths, you might not know it was the right or the wrong path, right? But you have to be a doer. You have to get things moving, and that's how you see success. Not that there isn't value in doing a little bit of thinking and a little bit of planning before you do it, but you have to do it.
Love that. That was very powerful. Very powerful. I love that. And I'm gonna definitely look it up. The Man in the Arena speech. Because yeah, what you said makes 100% sense. So thank you so much for being on our show today, Paul. You've definitely given us a lot of gold nuggets. I love how you run the company and you just don't take anyone on. You're taking on a certain amount of people because you know that you can help them. So I love that. I definitely gained a lot of information and knowledge just from you today. So thank you so much for having us on the show. Now,
Yeah.
guys, want to let you know, thank you so much for listening to the Mr. D Show. Please remember, action builds empire. Stay focused, stay hungry, and sometimes you just got to give life a little bit of a whammo. I'm Omar Andreasen. Thank you again for tuning in into Mr. Deeds. Until next time.
This is Omar Andreasen signing off and reminding you that success in real estate and in life is built one deed at a time. Until next time, keep it real, stay sharp, and don't forget to give life a big whammo and keep moving forward.